And welcome to the Mouthpiece Moment UFC 284 main card preview. This is the second installment of this little show that I've been putting on here. Last time went 5-0, got 3 out of the 5 methods of victory correct, hoping to go 5-0 again, baby. So listen up. This fight takes place in Perth, Australia. It's the first time that the UFC has been in Australia since October of 2019, and it's been exactly 4 years since they were actually in Perth, Australia. So that's pretty cool. The fans are going to be nuts. They're already nuts. They're nuts at the press conference. It's Friday late afternoon right now. The weigh-ins are tonight. I mean, the actual official weigh-ins have already happened, but the fan stud, the ceremonial weigh-in is tonight. So I kind of like watching that stuff before I make predictions, but unfortunately I can't. I'd rather get this done now so you guys have more time. The fans were crazy though. They're already screaming and yelling, and Australian fans are just awesome because they're loud, but they're respectful. I mean, they're not shouting terrible shit. They're just making it a super fun event. So just if you're on the fence of whether or not you're going to watch the fight because maybe you don't know the fighters, at least watch it to know that it's going to be a fun crowd. I think the fights are going to be really great. Just for reference, the Australians on that last card went 3-5, something to think about. And in the main event of this fight, it's the number 1 pound for pound fighter versus the number 2 pound for pound fighter in the world. They're fighting for the lightweight title, which is being held by the number 2 pound for pound fighter in the world. So it's either we're going to see something crazy, like someone's going to become a champ, which would be Alexander Volkanovski. He's the featherweight champion, the current featherweight champion. He's moving up to 155 to take the 155 title from Islam Makhachev. If Islam wins, he becomes the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world. So there's a lot at stake right now. It's interesting, at least for that. A lot of people really counting out Alex Volkanovski. We'll see how everything goes. I think it's going to be an interesting fight. We're going to just see screaming, red-faced maniacs in the crowd. That's going to be awesome. I'm sure we'll see some shoeies. For those of you who don't know what that is, look it up. It's pretty awesome. We might even see a fucking boomerang. I'm not even sure. I don't know, but I know it's going to be crazy. So let's get into the main card opener. It's a light heavyweight fight between number 12, Jimmy Crute. He's fighting the unranked Alonzo Menifield. This fight was really hard for me to pick because both guys have shown a lot of skill. Jimmy Crute is an Australian fighter. He entered the UFC at 8-0 as a prospect at 22 years old, a young cat. A lot of promise. He won his first 2 fights by finishes. He beat Paul Craig and Sam Alvey. Now his actual overall record in the UFC kind of tells a different story from that perspective. He's 4-3 in the UFC. But none of his fights have gone the distance. All of them were finishes, win or lose. So he's an exciting fighter. He hasn't fought since December 2021, and that was a knockout loss to current light heavyweight champion Jamal Hill. So it's not like he was fighting some scrub. The fight before that, he fought former title contender Anthony Smith. He only lasted a round. In a weird way, I think arguably he won that round, but he took a really hard kick in his knee, kind of shut down a nerve in his leg, and his ankle just started rolling. It looks really nasty. If you guys have time to watch that fight, go back and look at it. It looks weird. His ankle's rolling around. He still got a takedown, did some damage on the ground, couldn't really get to his corner. He got there, and then the ref checked on his leg. They had the doctor come in, and they called the fight between round 1 and 2. So it wasn't like he lost the fight because he actually lost the fight. His leg just wasn't working. So he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. His ground game is really, really good. Sharp striking. He's kind of a kill or be killed style of striker. So he's really fun to watch. So keep an eye on that. But again, he hasn't fought since December of 2021. It's been a while. He's fighting Alonzo Menifield, who's an American. Fights out of Fortis MMA. He's 6-3 in the UFC. Big, strong power puncher, kind of a wrestler. I say kind of because I don't think he came in as a wrestler, but he became a really good wrestler. He had some cardio issues early because he's really big, a big muscular dude. But But in his fight against Ed Herman, which Ed Herman's I think he's like a 41 or 42-year-old guy now, but he's a legend in the sense that he's been around for a long time. He's fought pretty much everybody back in the day that was a big name, real tough dude. So it was Alonzo's first major test as to whether or not he had fixed these cardio issues, and he showed a lot of patience and upgraded cardio in that fight. So it was a really good test for him. He smashed up Ed Herman's leg in that fight. That's something to look to in this fight, because I think it would really help him out to smash Jimmy Crute's leg up and help himself out early. So look for that. That might be part of the game plan. Excuse me. Oh, that's just delightful. He does get hit a lot, but he has high level fight IQ, and he really has changed a lot every fight. He seems to get better. He seems to understand more about putting his opponent against the cage, wearing him out. He does take punishment, but as soon as he starts taking punishment, he looks to get out of there. Pat Barry joined his camp 2 fights ago. And ever since then, and I'm not saying it's because of Pat Barry, but Pat Barry definitely helped. The last 2 fights, he had TKO victories. He seemed to be a lot more angry in those fights, and maybe that helps him. Maybe that's a thing. The guy has 10 first-round finishes, all KOs. 12 of his 13 wins are finishes. I could easily see this fight going either way, but when I really broke it down, I feel like Alonzo Menifield's going to get a TKO victory. I think Jimmy Crute is going to come out guns blazing. He's been talking a lot about how he's changed over since his last fight, and that Alonzo has no idea what's coming for him. That's probably true, but I just can't count out what Alonzo has done, so I'm going to go with Alonzo by TKO. The next fight on the card is a heavyweight fight between Justin Tafa and Parker Porter. There's a Porker joke in there. If you check him out, you'll see why. Sorry, Parker. Justin Tafa is a New Zealand-born fighter who actually trains in Australia. 6-foot boxer. He's a grandson of a national boxing champion. Heavy hands, big, strong legs, patient but explosive southpaw. And actually, was this kind of just a side note, but he was the first heavyweight UFC fighter to ever miss weight. He weighed in at 267. The limit is 266. And that was his most recent fight. That was in December of 2021. He won that fight by head kick KO against someone who was just kind of new and untested. And the crazy thing about the head kick was it was actually blocked with both arms, and the head kick still knocked him out. So he has really, really, really strong strikes. What's weird is his first fight was in, I believe it was Australia, and he fought against, what's his name, Jorgen de Castro, and he was doing all right in that fight, and he just came rushing in and got put to sleep. And so, I don't see that happening again. Parker Porter, he's an American fighter. Doesn't really have that kind of KO power that I've seen anyway. He's a 6-foot boxer and wrestler. If you look at him, he's really flabby and unathletic looking, but surprisingly has a really good gas tank and great cardio. He's able to sort of zap energy away from his opponents. That's kind of what's been getting him by lately. His first fight, he got TKO'd, but it was a short notice short notice fight. And so it was, I think he had 10 days or something like that, and he had to cut 30 pounds. So it's understandable. He does tend to get caught up in these short range, close brawls. He's got these really huge tree trunk thighs, which gives him a really good base. So he's able to kind of withstand a lot of punishment and get the fight where he wants him to be. I think you're going to need to take him out quick, or his durability is going to take over. And that'll end up playing into his favor. Again, he doesn't really have the KO power, so I don't really see that happening. His last fight, he was completely dominated by Jailton Almeida, who has fought at light, heavyweight, and heavyweight. He's this crazy grappler, super strong. I think that Jailton was outweighed by 30 or 40 pounds in that fight too. I don't see any of that happening in this fight. This fight is either going to be a KO victory for Tafa or a decision for Porter. This is another one that was super hard for me to pick. I went with my gut on this, and I got Tafa with a KO in Australia. Either way, it wouldn't surprise me. Hoping to get this one too. The next fight is a welterweight fight. This one has a lot of hype around it, even though neither guy is a big name fighter. This one is Jack Della Maddalena. Every time I've written that or tried to say it, I almost say Magdalena, but it's Jack Della Maddalena. versus Randy Brown. Jack Della Maddalena is 5'11", and that's important. 5'11" Australian fighter, only 26 years old, and he's only had 3 fights in the UFC. All 3 fights were wins. All 3 were TKOs. All 3 wins were in the first round. This dude sparks people. He's on a 10-fight winning streak. He was on a 10-fight winning streak before he entered the UFC, so that makes it 13 now. He entered the UFC in January of 2022, so I mean it's literally been that's 13 months or something like that. Sharp, tight boxing. Looks super clean when you watch him. There's not a lot of flash in what he does. I don't see a lot of kicks, which would really help him out against his opponent Randy Brown. It's mostly just really sharp hooks to the body. He goes body head, throws really good combos, stays in the pocket, handles business. He had a tough test in his second fight against Ramazan Emeev, who had him deep in a choke on the ground. That was last June. He got out of there, landed some big strikes, dropped him with a body shot, and finished with strikes. And that was really a big moment for him, because Ramazan Emeev is a great grappler, and he got out of that and did what he did. Next fight, which was his last fight, he dropped Danny Roberts, who was a well-known boxer as far as MMA goes, and he finished him with strikes after dropping him. So again, I mean, Randy Brown is a huge step up for Jack. And if Jack wins, I feel like he's gonna get a top 15 opponent, maybe top 20. But I mean, there's no denying him if he beats Randy Brown. Because Randy Brown is at this point, he's a veteran. He's not a huge household name yet, but he's definitely a veteran. Been around for a long time. 6'3", American/Jamaican. I say that because he was born in America. He moved to Jamaica as a toddler and then back to the U.S. at about 16 years old. So back and forth. He's got a boxing background, heavy hands. He's on a 4-fight win streak. His last win was a really close decision against another longtime veteran, Francisco Trinaldo. That was an interesting fight. Randy Brown keeps getting better after every fight. I mean, after every fight, you see like a new wrinkle in his game, a new version of him, a new confidence added. He's a very confident striker. That's what I would say. He's a rhythm and a flow striker. Like, he gets in these rhythms and these flows, and he just starts landing everything: kicks, punches, back fists. He's really confident. Some people would watch it and say that it looks very cocky. I just think he's confident. And it's hard to really deal with that length at 6'3" and 170 pounds. Be throwing big punches from the outside, sharp, creative stuff. He's a problem for a lot of people. And I think the way to get into him is just, you got to put pressure on him. You got to back him up. And I think leg kicks, there's been a few fights where he's been smashed up by leg kicks, full on turning his body. He's a thin guy, so there's not a lot of meat there to protect his legs. That might be the way to go. He really does feel like he's the underdog here. Obviously, he's in quote-unquote enemy territory. A lot of fans are kind of giving him I wouldn't say like a hard time, because they're respectful, but they're booing him, and he seems to be a little bit annoyed by it. He's acting like he's not, but I feel like he is. This one's either going to be a TKO victory for Maddalena or a submission for Randy Brown. I'm going to go with TKO by Jack Della Maddalena. I just think he looks really sharp. He looks comfortable right now in the media. I just feel like he's feeling good right now, and Randy Brown seems a little more flustered. Randy Brown was also, I wouldn't say late, because he still had about 45 minutes to weigh in, but he weighed in at 171, and he was the second to last fighter to weigh in. So actually, those might still be going on right now. I don't know who the last guy is. He's not he's not on the main card, but this one, again, another hard one for me to pick. I'm gonna have to go with Maddalena, and I hope he wins because I like his style. I like watching his boxing. It's just awesome. Next fight on the card is the co-main event. It's an interim featherweight title fight. That's 145 pounds. Kind of a weird situation, because the actual featherweight champion is Alexander Volkanovski, and he's fighting in the main event for the 155-pound title, and he says he's going to continue to fight in both divisions when he wins the title. So it's kind of a weird interim title, because both fighters sort of admit and understand that they aren't the real champion, and this is more of like a number one contender fight. But it is being booked as an interim title fight either way, regardless. This fight's going to be between the number 2 ranked Yair Rodriguez and number 5 ranked Josh Emmett. I don't think this fight is getting as much hype as it should. I'm pretty pumped. I love watching both of these fighters fight. I've been following their careers. I just don't. I mean, I think because it's not, some other huge name or somebody with, I guess, more charisma, they're not getting the hype, but they really should, to be honest. Yair's a Mexican-born fighter, Taekwondo specialist, throws a lot of flashy kicks and strikes. He's super fun to watch. Every one of his fights has just been awesome. It's scary to watch him. I know that sounds weird at 145 pounds, but he lands everything with such anger and he wants to kill. To me, that's what it looks like. Super creative stuff, but it has deadly intention. Like he's trying to rip people's fucking heads off, and I love that. I mean, I want to see some. No, I'm kidding. I don't want anyone to have their head ripped off. Also has underrated grappling. He's done pretty well in the grappling. In the grappling realm as of lately. His wrestling coach is Izzy Martinez. He gets a lot of hype. I don't know if he still is, but he was John Jones's wrestling coach, so he's well known in MMA. Actually, what made Yair famous or at least well known was when he posterized Andre Fili, who is Josh Emmett's training partner. There's a flying head kick KO where he knocked out Andre Fili. You should check that out if you haven't seen it before. It's pretty crazy. It's like a double. I don't know what it's called. I'm not in Taekwondo, but it was a flying head kick. And Andre Fili has been one of the main training partners for Emmett to kind of, because they have a similar body type. It's not the same style, but they have a similar body type. So Josh Emmett has said that Andre Fili's helping him out in that sense, just trying to create the same body type, throw some of the stuff he thinks he would throw. I don't think it's even possible to mimic what Yair does. It's too athletic, too creative. It's wild, and it's hard to tell what's going on. I will say when he fights southpaw, Yair, there's a lot of kicks coming when he's southpaw. So there's this. I don't know that this is a tell because maybe he's changed, but from the fights that I've watched, when he goes southpaw, there's a lot of big kicks when he switches, and they're at all three angles too. He kicks head, body, legs very quickly. He ends a lot of his combos with leg kicks. That's an interesting point. He has a swarming style too. Once he gets someone down, I mean, once he smells blood, he goes nuts. So I think the kicks are a big deal because I think that will be the path to victory if he's going to win against Josh Emmett. And I think I'll explain a little bit why. I'll explain why in a little bit. When he goes orthodox, he's more of a boxer. That's something to look for too. And again, it might have changed since his last few fights, but that's what I've seen so far. Josh Emmett is an American fighter, 37 years old, kind of old for his first time being in this realm where you're in the elite. I don't mean that as a put down. It's just, it is what it is. He turns 38 next month, so he's getting up there. He's going to need to do this soon. It's kind of a now or never sort of situation. He's on a 5-fight winning streak. Insane power in his hands. He traditionally came from a wrestling background, but he rarely uses his wrestling at this point. It's a lot of big hooks to the body, big hooks and overhands to the head. He's been with Team Alpha Male since they opened up their gym. He got like recruited from college or something like that. The guy has the type of power that just shuts people's lights off. He knocked out Michael Johnson. That's a highlight, knockout. He knocked out Ricardo Lamas. That's another crazy knockout. Look those up if you haven't seen him. He has to, most of what he does is in short range. So, I mean, that's a big deal because he's fighting someone who fights very well at distance at long range because of the kicks and everything like that. So he's going to have to get inside. He's been fighting recently with a chip on his shoulder. He kind of feels like the MMA media doesn't ever give him props for what he's doing or his skills. So the reason I brought up the kicking earlier and said I'll get back to this with Yair is Josh has had a few knee injuries, some surgeries. He's I wouldn't say fragile, but he's pretty beat up. He's got some major injuries. One of his eye sockets was damaged against I forgot his name. He had an injury when he fought against Jeremy Stevens. That's who it is. And so I just feel like the type of damage Yair does is really going to crumble Josh. This one was a little bit easier for me to pick just based on that. I mean, I could definitely see Josh Emmett shutting the lights out if he lands 3 or 4 of those big ones because Yair has really good durability. He doesn't get cracked very often to where you see him crumble or buckle or anything like that. So I have Yair winning by TKO. I think he's going to damage Josh Emmett's legs, and I think it's going to be that's gonna be it. I think he's gonna drop from that, and Yair will finish on the ground, or they might stop it from leg kicks. To be honest. So now let me get some water before this. Thank you for all you guys that are watching. Whoever's on there. Some people watching on Instagram Live. Here's one for you too. Just kidding. Sorry, I love you. The main event is the lightweight title bout at 155 between the champion Islam Makhachev and the featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski. Some people calling this a super fight. Yeah, you could call it that because it is the number 1 pound for pound fighter fighting and number 2 pound for pound fighter, and there's 2 champions fighting. So that either we're gonna have, again, like I said before, either Volkanovski is gonna become a champ in his home country, and it's gonna be this crazy celebration, or Islam wins. It's a spoiler for the night, and he'll become the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world, and he'll keep his title. So for this one, I don't think I need to break down too much about what they have going on because a lot of you guys already know. And if you're watching the fight, you're gonna see a lot of the hype anyway. But just a quick breakdown: Islam won the lightweight title in Dubai this past October by submitting Charles Oliveira, who was the UFC's record holder for most finishes. That was a big deal to him. He's a submission artist, and Islam said he was going to go in there and submit him, and he did. After the victory, he called out Volkanovski and said, "I want to fight you in Australia for your number 1 pound for pound distinction." And obviously Volkanovski is game for anything. You gotta love Volkanovski for that. He said, "Let's go for it," and they signed the deal and made it happen. Islam just feels like he's too big, too strong. His wrestling's too good. He's said that Australia doesn't have wrestling, and he just kind of He's come off, I wouldn't say cocky, but just sort of not worried about it. He just seems like this is an easy victory. He's almost like patting Alexander on his head, like, hey, hey, little boy, little kid kind of thing. He has said that he plans on knocking Volkanovski out, which he doesn't. I think maybe he has like 1 knockout victory on his record. But hey, he called the shot last time. Anything could happen. He's on an 11-fight winning streak since being knocked out by Adriano Martins, which is his only loss. I think it was a punch that he got knocked out. And before that, he was on a 12-fight winning streak. The one weird thing to note, as far as I know, and as of right now, Habib Nurmagomedov will not be in his corner. His longtime training partner, super close friend, trainer. I would assume that's like his best friend. That might be a significant factor on his psyche and something to pay attention to. But he did say, Islam did say he might show up, but I don't think so. And then for Volkanovski, he's on a 22-fight win streak. He's 25-1 overall. His last loss was in 2013, and that was at 185 pounds. Now, that might sound crazy, but he's a former rugby player, and when he played rugby back in the day, before his MMA career, he actually weighed up to 214 pounds. So he's 5'6". That's like I don't know if you guys can really imagine someone 5'6", 214 pounds and being like muscular, not some big tubbo. You know what I'm saying? So, and another important factor to think about is he's 5-0 at lightweight, which is the division that he's trying to win the title for. His first fight in UFC was actually at lightweight, so he actually dropped down to get to 145 significantly. So it's not as though he has no footprint at the 155 pound division. He's 5-0 in it. Obviously that was against lesser competition, but he's being considered. He's in the GOAT talk for 145. He pretty much is at this point. It's hard to really say, because a lot of people take Jose Aldo and will never let go of that. That was a long time. His prime is definitely far past as far as MMA goes. But Volkanovski took out Jesus Christ, I forgot his name. Jesus, what is it? I gotta look over here. Let me see this. Sorry, everybody. Max Holloway. He took out Max Holloway 3 times, and Max was considered the GOAT for a while. And he met his match. But he has wins over, like I said, Jose Aldo, Max Holloway, Chad Mendes, Korean Zombie. He pretty much feels like he's cleaned out the division, and that's why he's willing to move up. In the lead up to this fight, I will say this. He's feeling really disrespected by Islam, and it's in a weird way. Like, Islam's not saying much, but he said that he wants to slap the smirk off of Islam's face because he feels like he's smirking in media and making this look as though, you know, Volkanovski ain't shit, that kind of thing. I just feel like Volkanovski has a permanent chip on his shoulder because he's 5'6", and he's been dominating people a lot bigger than him for a while. And he's been backing it all up, so you can't really say much about it. He says he wants to shock the world, and that's what this will be. If he beats Islam, he will be shocking the world. Another thing to point out is he has put on a master class at being the hometown guy, the home country guy, leading up to this. See, just if you guys have time to watch any of the pre-fight stuff, the press conference, anytime there's a crowd around, he has put on a master class at how to handle this situation. Young fighters, pay attention. I think this fight's going to be awesome. Islam is a crazy good wrestler. He comes from Dagestan, been wrestling his entire life. He's been dominating in wrestling in the UFC. He's pretty much mopped up everyone in that sense. Volkanovski doesn't have a traditional MMA trade, something that he comes from. He just learned MMA, and he's really good at adapting. He has an extremely high fight IQ. He knows how to game plan very well. He takes what you're best at and destroys you sometimes with it, and then sometimes is able to stunt to take away from what you do best and implement his game. So there's always a really intelligent game plan behind it. He plans on stopping Makhachev at wrestling. He says, I can stop these takedowns, and if you take me down, I'll get back up. You're not going to be able to stop me. He's going to put hands on Makhachev. All that sounds awesome. He seems hyper confident. He's participated in a lot of lead up events. So he doesn't seem to be bothered too much. This one, he's an underdog big time in this fight. The closer it gets to the fight, the more I believe that he can do it. But the smart money's on Makhachev, so I'm gonna have to go with Makhachev. And this is where I'm having a lot of trouble. I don't know if he's gonna submit him. I don't know if he's gonna TKO him on the ground. I don't know if it's gonna be a decision that he dominates. I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth. I think we're going to see a third round, and we're going to get a submission in the third round. So, hey, that I know to some people, some of that might sound crazy. That's how I feel. Fingers crossed we get 5-0. If not, hey, whatever. At least we did it. Anybody else that wants to get involved in this kind of thing, you let me know. Anyone that wants to participate in any way. If you and this is all for entertainment purposes, but if you happen to win some money, just look at the description, homie. Look down. I just want to say thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. It's going to be a good fight. Let me know what you think in the comments. Subscribe, like, share this. Tell everybody. Let me know. I love you. See ya. Peace.